Okay everyone, welcome to the video tutorial on how to do some of the homework that was assigned for Access Level 1. This is from Chapter 1. We're going to focus on the Art Center Instructors Database. It is Chapter 1 Access Assessment Project 1. So it is part of your review package. I would ask that you download the files necessary to complete this assignment. There's a database file, there's some instructions, and if my memory serves me correctly, there might be an Excel file to import as well. So with that being said, make sure you have all of those files ready to go, and we can then continue with the demonstration. On the screen, you'll notice that I've prepared for three different videos that I'm going to do today. One being the Chapter 1 Access one, the one that I just mentioned, the Art Center Instructors file. And then we're going to do a couple videos on Chapter 2 for Access Assessment 1 and Assessment 2. So those will be separate videos, but I've already downloaded everything to make sure that I am ready to go. The best thing that you can do is take the files that you need, download them to your computer, and get ready to work. What I've done already is I've actually downloaded and printed these instructions. It is a lot easier to have the instructions in writing, and then you can have the other files ready to go when you need them. The purpose that I always recommend downloading the instructions and printing them is for taking notes. If you need to take some notes, you can actually write on the paper directly, keep them in your binders or in your books, and refer back to them when you're studying for the test, which is either next week or the week after. With this, I have the folder open for the first one that we're going to look at. I am going to go in steps. So the step 1 states to start access, download the open the file that we have from the MyIT Lab if you're at Seneca. So I'm going to double click this file here. This is the one I need. I'm going to open it, and it should open up Microsoft Access with the file that we need. I always stress to the students, ensure that you enable content. If you do not enable content, then it's going to just cause you a whole bunch of issues later on. So that's the first thing you do right away. Now that step 1 is out of the way, it's worth no marks, which is obvious because we're just opening a file. It's out of the way. I take my pen, I mark off step 1, it's done, move on to the second step. Second step states, open the sections table in the datasheet view, change the ID field name to section ID, and its caption to section ID. Basically, when you double click on the table here, it'll populate in the actual datasheet view. The question states that you need to make some changes. Now, for me, I'm not a big fan of the datasheet view, and I try not to use it as much as possible. If I did this my way, which I would show you guys in person if I was there, I would actually, with this open, I'd actually click on the view button here. This is the view. It's going to switch our views from one to another. I'm going to click on that, and this is the design view. I like making my changes in this view over the datasheet view, and I will continuously show it to you this way. Your simulations and your homework might show you the other way. That's fine, completely up to you, but this is the way I do things, and so I would share that with you. So it says change the ID field name to section ID. So basically it's just stated here ID. It wants a name of section ID. Make sure when you're doing your field names, there is no gap, there's no space, because it'll cause you problems, and later on down the road, you're going to have issues with creating relationships. The second part of the question states, go down here to where it says caption, and from there now, it's saying to make that caption section ID. I'll do my very best not to make any spelling mistakes. I always encourage you guys to keep a close eye on that. I've had students tell me in my videos before that I've made mistakes, and that makes me happy because it means that you're paying attention, and I obviously was not. So this is the caption, section ID. It mirrors this here, but the caption allows for spacing, whereas the field name does not. Step 3 states that in the second column, add a field named start with the date and time type, data type. Now, obviously, I'm in design view. Design view has all of my fields going in rows. This is where it gets a little confusing because I've switched to the design view when it didn't tell me to. However, as you get better with the software, you know the difference between the two. In this case here, it's not the second column, rather it is the second row. So I'm going to click start or type start. And if you know the data type over here, it states that it should be date and time. So just simply click here, choose the date/time option. Perfect. That's step 3. Cross it off. Done. Now it says in the third column, in this case row, add a field named fee with the currency data type. I'm going to go to the next one here. I'm going to type the word fee. I'm going to watch my capitals and all that good stuff and switch it to currency. Perfect. That's step 4. Done. Step 5 says in the fourth column, in this case the fourth row, add a field named instructor ID with the short text data type, a field size of 50, and a caption set to instructor ID. Save and close the table. So basically it's asking us to do a few different things here for the same amount of marks than question 4. That's okay because it's not that complicated either. Let's go down here and go instructor ID. Again, make sure your spelling is 100% accurate. Then it says short text, which is fine. That's the default. The second part of this question says set the caption. Sorry, not the caption. It says set the size, the field size, to 50. The default is 255. We're going to change it to 50. And then it says set the caption to instructor ID. Most of the problems you will face when building these databases is the spelling. So if you miss a letter or miss a space, like I said earlier, if you try and make a relationship between the tables, it's gonna get really upset. It's gonna give you errors, and it's sometimes very complicated and difficult to find the issue. So that looks perfect. Everything's fantastic. It says save and close the table. So basically we've made some changes. So I'm gonna click the save button, and I'm closing the table. I'm not closing the database, just the table. To do that, there's a whole bunch of different ways. I'm gonna click the X to the right here. Perfect. So now that's done. That's step 5. We can move on to step 6. Step 6 is worth quite a bit of marks. It's, according to the sheet here, it's worth 10 marks. It's not complicated at all. The hardest part of this is figuring out where the import button is. And I'm going to show it to you. It's not difficult once you know. I'm going to go over here and I'm going to click on external data up here on the tabs. And I need to do an import from the sections worksheet that we also downloaded. So basically, a lot of people get confused and they go right away to this export spot here, and that's a problem. That's not the way we do it. It's not an export. We're actually creating a new data source here, top left corner. Click on that, and then you can download or import from file, which is Excel. Then I got to find out where did I save it. So you guys need to know this. You need to figure out where did you save your file. If I'm not mistaken, I'm on my desktop up here. So I go into there. I find the file I'm looking for, and it's this one here. Skills, Sections, XLSX. Double click it. Then I have to make sure not to miss this next step. It says append the data to the sections table. So I got to go over here to append. There's only one table in this database, so it's not difficult at all. So there it is, sections. And then I'm going to click OK. Everything looks good. You can just move through the steps. There's no other instructions. So at this point, you can assume that everything is good. You just press finish. And it does not say to save the import step, so you don't, and you click close. You may think that nothing's happened, which is fine. However, when you go and you double click on the sections table, you should notice that we have a whole bunch of records that have been added. Let's take a look. These were not here before. These are what we've imported from Excel. Very, very important. So step 6 is done. Looks good. Step 7 now, it says open it in datasheet view. So this table here, which is what I've done here, I've opened it. It's fantastic. It says set the column widths to best fit and then sort by the start column in ascending order. So there's a whole bunch of steps going on here. So basically, just like in Excel, if you go over here, you can go in between the columns and double click, and that should set it to best fit. Your homework's going to show you that there's different things that you can do. You can go into to the more here, and you can go to field width, and you can choose best fit here, but you'll notice that it hasn't changed because it works both ways. So that's finished. Then it says sort the start column in ascending order. Okay, so this is the the start column. I'm going to click on it, and then we have ascending order. Just remember, ascending is going up and descending is coming down. So we're going to go from A to Z. We're going up, ascending. The next step says filter the datasheet so that only records where the instructor ID is A103 is displayed. So when we're going here, instructor ID, you'll notice there's a whole bunch of different ones. What we want to do is we want to filter it so that only A103 is displayed. So we make sure this column is selected. On the Home tab, we go over to Filter, and we can select only A103. Now that that's selected, and I click OK, the only records that we should see in this database are the ones that it wants. So that's step 7, worth 10 marks. That's done. Step 8, for the datasheet, set the font size to 10 and the font to Cambria. Let's take a look at this. We're going to click on this here so that we've selected the datasheet. We're going to change the font to 10. And we're going to choose Cambria as the font. I'm going to scroll down and find it. Now there's a couple different Cambrias, so make sure you just pick the regular one. That's what it's asking for. Perfect. Now it says, use the datasheet formatting dialog box to set the cell effect to sunken and background color to automatic and the grid line color to green, accent 6, and then save and close the table. That's a lot of information going on right now. But not to worry. The hardest part of this step is to know where in the heck is that formatting dialog box. So I'm going to show it to you. Home tab, all the way over here, and there's this little button to the right. When you click on this, it's going to give you the options that we're looking for. This is the data sheet formatting dialog box. So let's review. It says, make the cell effect sunken. Done. Background color to automatic. Background color, automatic. Done. And then the grid line color to green, accent 6. So this is the grid line color here. I'm going to go over and I'm going to hover. And I'm going to notice that this one here is telling me it is green, accent 6. I'm going to select it. Looks fantastic. I'm going to click OK. And then it says save and close the table. So business as usual. Click the disk, just save it, and then close your table. Perfect. That is step 8. That is done. Moving on, step 9. Create a new table in design view. Add a field named instructor ID with the short text type data type. Set the field as the primary key. The field size should be 50 and the caption should be instructor ID. That is a lot of information, but just like everything else so far, it is not complicated whatsoever. I do want to point out that the instructor ID that they're asking us to create in this new table is very similar and almost exact to the one that we just did in the sections table. Here's how we do this. We pay attention, it says design view. So at this point we go create, and then we look for tables, and we want to go to design table. I'm going to click on that, and here we are, my favorite view of them all. It says add the field named instructor ID. So this is our very first one. Instructor ID, no space. It says short text data. Perfect. It automatically populated. This here, it says set this this field as the primary key. Very, very simple as well. Go over here on this part here, and then you can either right click, choose primary key, or on the ribbon, you can do primary key. Either way. The reason why this is important, the primary key is unique. It's a unique field specifically for that table. So we want to set one field typically to the primary key. And in this case, this is the 1. It says make the field size 50. And the caption should be instructor ID with a space. Instructor ID. That is step 9. Perfect. Step 10. Save the table with the name instructors. Switch to datasheet view and then add some more columns with some quick start fields. Oh, that's pretty easy. Let's take a look. So let's save the table. Click the save. Because it's the first time that we're saving it, we can give it a name. Now this is saying it should be instructors. And then I click OK. So now that's done. Switch to datasheet view. This time I'm going to do what it tells me. Click on view. Perfect. I am now in datasheet view. It says the second and third columns insert the quick start field, the name quick start fields. So a lot of people are like, I don't understand what that's telling me to do. So basically, there are ways that we can have this auto-populate some things for us. So if we go to the More button, and then we can take a look at some of the options that it has for us. Now we already know that we have the different things that we can do with the sizing, but we need to figure out how is it that we can add more quick start fields to our database. So let's go up here to the Fields button, and then you'll notice that there's the More Fields option. So we click on this, and when you scroll down, you'll get to where it says Quick Start. And it's asking us to do the name Quick Start. Watch what happens when I click this. It's going to auto-populate last name and first name, which makes our lives very, very easy. It says in the fourth column, add a field named phone with the short text data type. So at this point here, I'm going to type short text. So we want short text, and this one's going to be called phone. That is step 10. Moving on. Step 11. Okay. It says in the instructor's data sheet view, enter the following records based on the table of information that they've given us. So basically, we need to add some instructor IDs, some last names, first names, and phone numbers. I'm going to stress very, very, very much here that we want to make sure that we're typing this stuff in 100%. If we don't, like I said, we're going to run into some massive problems later on. So I'm now typing all of this stuff in. It's going to take us some time, but feel free to take your time with it. It's not my favorite part, but hey, you know what? It is what it is. So that's A101. One thing that I don't think is very clear, and I think I need to correct, is that it looks like there's a space between the phone number and the area code. So I'm going to do that, and then I'm going to go back and fix the other one, because if my memory serves me correctly, I believe that's what it's asking for. If you don't have it exact, it's going to be a huge problem. So we got to make sure that we're doing it good. Later on, you'll learn about creating input masks, and that would solve any of these crazy formatting issues that we may run into with the actual phone number fields and other fields like that. I apologize for the silence, but there's not much more to this than just typing this information in carefully and accurately. Lucky for us, the other assignments typically don't have as much typing as this first chapter. On the last record here, I'm going to go back and correct the one at the top in a second because, like I said, I believe this is going to be an issue if there's no space. So I'm going to fix that for the assignment. So I'm going to go back up here, press the space bar, and voila, that looks good. Now it wants us to set this table best fit, same as usual, right? So we're going to click on the table. We're going to go to in between and double click, or as mentioned earlier, home tab, more, field width, best fit. Both should give you the exact same results. So that's now step 11 and step 12. So when we get to step 13, this is the moment of truth here. If we've made any mistakes up to this point, step 13 is going to freak out on us and give us a huge error message. So let's hope that everything looks good and we can go from there. If something's wrong, we'll try our best to fix it and solve the problem. So first, before I get to step 13, I must save and close the table. So now I've done that. Perfect. Now I'm going to create my relationships. So I'm going to go to Database Tools, and I'm going to go to the Relationships window here. When I click on that, it now forces me to choose either tables, queries, or both. We only have tables in our database, so we're okay. We're going to click Add. Both of them are now available. And what it wants us to do is create a one-to-many relationship between the two tables using the instructor ID field as the common field. Basically, that's telling us we need to take this one here, the primary key from instructors, drag it over. Well, let me close this first. Take it and drag it over to the instructor ID in the other table. When I do that, it's going to show me instructor ID here in the instructors table and instructor ID in the sections table. At that point, it tells me to also enforce referential integrity. It says do not select the cascading, delete, or update options. So it doesn't want these two options, but it wants us to ensure that we have this one selected. Once that's done, I'm going to click Create. Perfect. No errors whatsoever. Like I said, if there was an error, it would freak out and give you a pop-up. Basically, what this is telling you is that in this table, you can only have one instructor ID. But in this table, there is potential that you could have multiple instructor IDs. So that's basically what it's referring to. It's quite neat. Step 14 says create a relationship report and then save the report with the name provided in the Save As dialog box and then close the report. Sounds good. So basically, we need to generate a relationship report here. We click on it and there it is. And then it says click the Save As dialog box. It gives us the default name. It's great. Click OK. And then it tells us to close the report. Perfect. It says save and close any other objects that are open, which we have the relationship window open, close it, and depending on where you are, you would then either submit this file to my IT lab to be graded, or you would keep it as a file for review. I hope you enjoyed this video. I know it's kind of dry stuff, but if you practice these practice tests over and over again, when it comes time for the real test, you will do exceptionally well. Thanks for your attention, and we'll see you in the next video. Have a great day.